Real life
Superpowers.
I like founders who are trying to solve a problem that they have personally, or it can be in their family, right? They're facing some kind of a challenge. They don't find a solution. They don't find a product that's solving this. And they say, okay, I'm going to find a way to make this problem go away for myself. What usually happens later is as soon as they do that and find a solution, they find out that there is a product market fit. They're not the only ones with this kind of a problem.
Hey everyone! In this episode, we speak with Liron Rose, also known as the investor in Israeli unicorns. He's a serial entrepreneur and a venture capital investor with a few unicorns under his belt. His portfolio includes companies such as Similarweb, Kenshoo, Dynamic Yield, Fiverr, and many more. He's the co-founder of After Download, a company he grew from 0 to 30 million in revenue in 3 years. In 2013, he sold it to IronSource for 28 million. He's the founder and CEO of Techstars Israel, the local branch of the prestigious global Fintech accelerator. He does business consulting for global companies, helping startups that are raising capital.
Real life
Superpowers.
Life
Superpowers.
So, Liron, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Hi, guys. Nice to meet you guys online and very happy to be invited to your podcast.
Awesome. So what are you up to these days?
So these days, I'm looking for specific startups in specific fields that can become the new unicorns of the next decade, so to speak. So I'm not looking for traditional, more of the same kind of startups, but I'm looking for those startups that can, produce some kind of a magical return because they seem to be a little bit on the fringe side of things. So fringe, I'll call them fringe startups because they're not mainstream. But if those startups, manifest and those technologies do happen, I will see exceptional returns on my investment.
How do you decide what are the unicorns if everything right now is an opportunity? Because there may be too many disruptions in the market.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. We're going to see interest rates staying zero for a long time. So that means that you're not getting any return whatsoever on cash balances or on bonds. And that forces investors to take higher risks and go to riskier assets, which include stocks, real estate, and private equity or startups, tech companies, new ventures. Yeah, so in that sense, yes, the market is a little bit different than what it used to be because basically what happens is that the price of money or the interest rate is zero and the market is flooded by
liquidity.
Money, by liquidity, exactly. So one thing that is somehow a way out of this, and I've been watching this vertical for many years, and it's booming again now, is the entire blockchain and Bitcoin industry. We see Bitcoin at an all-time high, and that is some kind of an alternative to mainstream investing. We see companies such as PayPal, Square, and MicroStrategy putting hundreds of millions of dollars into Bitcoin and blockchain. Some of this is a hedge against money printing by central banks. Some of it is more of their having a conviction that cryptocurrency and blockchain is the future of fintech. So I guess it's a little bit of both.
Do you mind if I challenge you on that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so this is how I see it, and I really want to see it in a different way. There will be different dips in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency. So this will be a high and there will be a low. And I think it's actually done really crappy as an ICO concept, and everybody crapped on it by being financially incentivized. And what will happen is, because we're printing money and doing really stupid things with the economy, which is a stupid concept in the basis of it, it'll blow up in our face. And then because no one did any other idea, we'll say, okay, we'll go with the cryptocurrency, even though that's not thought through. And it may become new money just because we're lazy to think of anything else. But that's not the problem. The thing is that I'm asking this as a VC. Don't you see that the opportunity is not with the companies that there are, but in the companies that are not? Meaning that once Amazon or Facebook or any of those give out their own currency, none of this is relevant, not Bitcoin, not Ether, or anything else. So isn't the opportunity just not hedging on Bitcoin, but actually helping those economies? Because that's their finish him. After governance of economy, that's it. They own everything. And they're just waiting for the right opportunity.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I've seen research done by, the most serious institutions in the US, including Fidelity and Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan and so forth. And their analysts have proven that having some sort of allocation, single-digit allocation to Bitcoin makes sense because it's zero correlation to other assets.
Right.
Now, I don't know what the future holds, but I can tell you that if more and more institutions start to believe that Bitcoin or Ethereum are good stores of value and those networks are stable and cannot be hacked easily, and Bitcoin has a history of 12 years of not being hacked, the more institutions go into this, and as time goes by, and we had a Bitcoin halving earlier this year, so less and less new Bitcoins are being minted by the miners. So we have an anti-inflationary asset here, which you can store value with. It's comparable to physical gold, but in some senses, it's even better than gold because you can send it in a similar way to a wire transfer, to a bank wire transfer to another person, to another company in another country, and you don't actually have to transport physical gold bullion. So you have a store of value of an asset which is anti-inflationary, and the number of Bitcoins that are going to ever exist is known already. So we know how many Bitcoins are in circulations, and it cannot be more. So the user base is growing by anything between 30 to 40% per year. So the more people use it, the more people who believe in it and hold some of their portfolios in this asset class, we're going to see the price going up because there is a short supply and a higher demand.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And Liron, I want to circle back to your quest for finding a unicorn. And then I also want to touch how you reached where you are today. So first off, what do you look for? How can a startup at an early stage know if they're on the way to becoming a unicorn? And obviously, nothing is guaranteed, but what are the indicators?
So it's kind of impossible to know that, but there are a few common ways of analyzing the opportunity. And I think the most important factor in a startup is the team. So the team has to be exceptional. And when I say exceptional, I mean that at least one team member, and I don't really like startups that have only one founder. It's usually better to have two or three. And it's even better than these people know each other for a while and have not met in some kind of a meetup, 2 weeks ago, but they've been, knowing each other for a few years, and maybe they even have, previous experiences in working together as a team. So, they're going on an expedition that's going to be anywhere between 7 to 10 years, and they're going to spend a lot of time together. So if these guys cannot stand each other after a couple of months, the startup falls apart. So we need people who can work with each other. How do you know if they can work with each other? You don't really know, but you're trying to see the dynamics between the team. You try to to look at their body language to see if they agree with each other, if they argue too much. They don't have to be the same. You don't want founders that are clones of each other. You want founders that are complementary to each other, and you want at least one of them, preferably all of them, but at least one of them who is a huge. I would call that, talent or outlier. So someone that is exceptional at something, like two or three standard deviations from the norm. A very talented technical guy, way beyond a very talented, gifted CTO. That can be an X factor, or someone with exceptional leadership skills, or somebody with exceptional marketing or business development skills. But when I say exceptional, something that's way out of the norm. You need some kind of an X factor to succeed. The chances are so slim anyway.
On the team side, which is really, really important, how would you build the correct team? Meaning, I understand the X factor, but when you're looking at it, it's usually the leader. Doesn't matter if he's the developer, he has the X factor. Okay. But that's obvious. The other ones, how do they support them? What are you looking for that when you're imagining what would be their stick in their wheel? Okay. So what do they have to be?
Right. So first of all, it doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't have to be the CTO that is the X factor. It can actually be, the CEO, who is a very charismatic person who can raise a lot of money, because usually one of the main reasons of startups failing or closing down is when they run out of money. So, and if they're close to running out of money, or if their runway is too short, then it's up to the CEO. It's CEOs in startups have two main responsibilities. One is hiring the right people to the company, and the second is making sure that the company doesn't run out of money. Now, for the company not to run out of money, if investors are saying no when you're trying to raise an additional round, and everyone is saying no, and you see your cash balance going lower and lower every month, you probably need to pivot your startup and come to the market with a new pitch, because investors are not believing in what you're actually saying. They think the potential is not big enough, and they're refusing to invest. So a charismatic leader is usually that can be another X factor. But let me turn back into technology, because I think the unicorns of the next 10 years, can come from technologies that don't exist yet. So when I started my career, and this is to your question, I started my career with startups and investing as an entrepreneur when the internet first showed into our lives about 20 years ago. So I started in online marketing.
Was that your first job, or did you first work for someone? No,
it was a job. It was an online marketing job in an online gaming company about 20 years ago, and no one had a clue about this field at all. I studied management economics, and then I did an MBA, and I was supposed, people like me were supposed to go and work in banks or in marketing or business development of some big companies, and no one had a clue what this online thing is. But I was passionate about the internet when it first started, and I was lucky to be there as a pioneer. And I think this is the same. It's always the same when new technologies appear. You need to be first. So if I was there as a pioneer for online marketing, the people who are now into, just an example, drones or electric vehicles, we are underestimating the rate of change of certain industries. So, we don't have Teslas in Israel yet. We might have them next year. But as soon as electric cars such as Tesla start to hit the roads here and capture more and more market share, 5, 7, maybe 10 years from now, it's quite possible, it's quite likely that most cars on the roads here in Israel will be electric. It's kind of hard to imagine that now, because, we see a hybrid car here and there. It's hard for us to estimate how fast things go. So another example is the iPhone. If you look 10 years ago, we all had Nokias and generation 1 mobile phones. And at some point, this iPhone version 1 showed up, and some cool people had them because they were a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, you also couldn't bring them to Israel. Like I remember I had a flight attendant bring it in for me.
Right, they were prohibited. Right, and then each year they start these smartphones captured market share on the expense of traditional mobile phones, and everyone has smartphones now, even little children from the age of 6. So the same can happen to other technologies, which we think that are kind of far-fetched now, but can become more mainstream. I can give you a couple of examples. Quantum computers is one of them. I've seen VCs investing in quantum computers. These are computers that are not fully operational yet. Maybe Google and some universities have them, but if these things, and it's not an if, it's probably more of a when than an if, start to become more mainstream, and they're going to be produced on a larger scale, not a mass scale, but on a larger scale, we're going to see a revolution in computing. These things are probably orders of magnitude stronger than the stronger supercomputer we currently have. So that's an entire revolution. If that's happening, the AI revolution that everyone's talking about is going to speed up in such a way that we can't even imagine. So this is one example, and we've seen other examples with medical cannabis, which used to be street drug before a few years back, but now medical cannabis, and even recreational cannabis is totally mainstream, right?
Yeah,
and and these companies are in the stock exchanges both in the US and in Israel. We've seen. I think I've read that, or I think it was Oregon, just approved psychedelic medicines back in the US.
Yeah, there's an entire revolution going on there.
I think I've read about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel has invested $100 million into a startup that is researching psychedelic medicine. So things that used to be drugs are now becoming mainstream medical. As soon as the doctors say yes, this has a medical use, things are reclassified, and then you have an entire industry such as cannabis becoming mainstream and becoming a vertical in itself. So these kind of trends that you see evolving from zero, and they start as fringe, and people don't believe them, and they say that this is nothing, and it's not going to influence the world. Sometimes these things become huge.
Like definitely, I agree everything, and I agree with the kind of computers and cannabis and everything. The problem is the timing. So like in the electrical cars, we had Agassi in Israel trying to implement, and he did the education, and Tesla will take the reward. Steve Jobs got the Windows from Bill Gates, and he got the reward. And each time we had these stories, about education. So the thing is, as a VC, and this is what you're doing also successfully, is trying to go on it when it's after the education of the market, but still a trend that's booming. So, Bitcoin, if you take it for example, there was like investing in 2008 and investing today is a totally different thing. And they're both right? So how do you differentiate that it's like something that's evolving business-wise and not as a concept?
Yeah, so take Bitcoin as an example here. Of course, if someone was a friend of Satoshi and invested in Bitcoin, when one Bitcoin, you needed maybe like 20 Bitcoin to buy a pizza or something, and you kept these Bitcoins for 10 years, you're probably worth $100 million now or something like that, right? If you were one of those early miners. But I think there's not too many people like this, and trends gain momentum. So I think it's good enough. You don't have to be the first or among the small minority of fringe pioneers, but if you adopt the technology early enough, that's good enough to benefit from it. So I'm just giving an example here. If you invested into Bitcoin in 2015 or 2016, which many people have, you're way ahead with your investment, probably 10x or 20x over your investment now. So you didn't have to be, one of these weird people who started this in 2009. You could have heard about it in the news in 2015, and thought and said to yourself, yeah, this is interesting. I'm going to do this, and I think it's the same for every technology. So I think you have to be early. You don't have to be first. You just have to be early enough.
That's the hardest thing, I think. Like as a VC, this is something that always I wanted to understand. You're managing so many investors. Okay, so you're wrong till you're right. So you invested, let's say, like you did things like that, and you have in your portfolio things like that. So you invested in a few things, and you're always wrong for so long till you're right. How do you manage that? Like, because they were looking for ROI, and you're in front of the entrepreneur, you have to help them on one side, and you have to give ROI back. So how do you manage that?
So first of all, I'm not a VC. I invest my own capital. I don't manage other people's capital. So I'm not boxed into this seven-year cycles of VCs. VCs have usually a 7-year time horizon, and they have to enter their positions and basically sell them or exit after 7 years. I don't have, because I'm managing my own capital, doing this on a permanent capital.
But you still have to believe yourself. How do you explain it to yourself?
The more I'm doing this, the more modest I become, and I'm not doing a ton of investments. To be honest, I get a huge deal flow. I get approached by many entrepreneurs and founders, and it's all about the selection process. It's all about reviewing a lot of companies before making a decision. And I think what I'm looking for when I do early stage or pre-seed or seed is those outcomes that 1 in 1,000 outcome. If I give you an example from poker, right? So I'm trying to go for a straight flush or something like that, which is very uncommon, and probably I'm not going to get that. But if I do, then I might hit 100x or 500x return. So,
and Liron, talking about that, and success rates, you had a very successful exit. Was this your first company, or did you fail before?
No, this was actually my second company, and it was acquired by Liron Rose a few years ago. No, I didn't have that failure yet, but I did. What I did have is many startups that I went into as an investor who didn't make it. So I've had at least 5 or 6 companies, probably more, that I came in as an investor and have failed. So I've seen failures, many failures actually, as an investor.
So you were saying that the company that you sold to Liron Rose, that was the second startup that you started?
Right.
What happened with the first?
The first one was actually a one-man show company. It was an online I said I started my career with online marketing. It was a one-man show company in online marketing. It was running search engine, pay-per-click ads. And I used to do that even before there was Google AdWords. There were other search engines who were doing pay-per-click before Google even existed. So that's 15 years ago, and not too many people did that, and there were no agencies, or there were agencies, but not that many, and the market was so much less competitive than what it is today in terms of the bidding in Google AdWords or Facebook ads are so mainstream today. Everyone goes and everyone advertises in those platforms. But go 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was an innovation. People were advertising on the yellow pages and in newspapers, and no one even knew what a Google ad was. And that was the time to do it, because the margins, the profit margins on online advertising back then.
How did you find customers?
I started with affiliate programs, and I was selling mostly online software. All you had to do is sign up to certain platforms who are aggregating software companies and providing their reseller or affiliate technology, and basically use the links and advertise those links. I'm oversimplifying this, of course, now, but that's how it was. By the way, it's still this industry is still there. It's even bigger. It's even bigger than what it was back then. But the margins, the profit margins, are smaller.
Yeah, and by the way, why did you love it? Did you like it because it was self-reliant, like you're making money out of something virtually, or because you can just get out of something and affiliate and get it? Like, what excited you about it that caught you?
So back then, it was one of those businesses that you can start on your own as a freelancer or one man show, and being self-reliant, and you can reach a scale and grow this business at rates that you couldn't in a brick and mortar world, right? So to have these kind of revenues or turnover, you probably had to have 50 stores, like a franchise of 50 shops or stores or whatever, to make these revenues, which you could make over Google or these other search engines.
So why did you stop?
So the margins actually started to decline a while back, about at least 10 years ago. And that's where I came with this idea that I should do something that will endure for a few more years at least. And that was the start of After Download, the company that Liron Rose bought. I saw the margins decreasing year after year, and policy and Google policy becoming more difficult to handle every year, and I thought that it's probably better to launch a company that is not reliant on these giants, and that was the start of After Download.
Did you have co-founders, or was this still solo?
No. We were a team of three. There were three of us co-founders, and we didn't have too many investors actually. We only had two investors. We didn't invest a lot of money. It was mostly a bootstrap company. It grew quite fast. I think we went break even in about 6 months or so. And then, the rest is history, and the company grew, at a very, very fast rate until.
What was special about the team?
What was special about the team? Well, I don't want to, give too many compliments to myself, but I probably can give some compliments to my co-founders, which were exceptional. I think we were a good team together, and the hiring process was pretty good. So the entire team, or at least the core team, it was like a family. Everyone was like handpicked, and I think the results prove that it's never easy to do this, to scale a company from, three founders. I think we went all the way to 50 before we were acquired. And in these days, Liron Rose, they managed to do this and take this to the next level. I think they're about 1,000 people now. So, growing and scaling a company, it's always a challenge, and it's a different sort of challenge. Scaling a tiny team to a medium-sized company. It's a different challenge altogether, scaling a medium company, to international conglomerate or something like that. Yeah.
Was it scary scaling it?
No, I don't think so. No. I think, I was in charge of cash flow and finance as well as
you
strategy.
did a great job. We know the cash flows there. That's a hard job, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you're probably very good at mitigating risks, because you put yourself in very high stakes situations. But it sounds like during the entire journey, from what we're hearing, even though they were very high stakes situations, somehow the risk and the downside wasn't high. It sort of contradicts, but still. I think
you're right on the ball here, Noah. I think you got it. It's true that mitigating risk is you want your upside to be unlimited, but you want to protect your downside, just the way you said it. And it's I always, in my entire career, I try to do this. So in the last few years, my strategy was not to be entirely exposed to startups and tech, but to diversify into other asset classes such as real estate and more of the stock market. So you want to be in a position that you don't have like a single point of failure that can collapse the entire building. Especially as you time passes and you accumulate some successes, you want to mitigate the risk of losing everything. You don't want to be in such a scenario. So it's a little bit like buying insurance. So you sacrifice a little bit from the upside just to protect the downside. And I think it's risk tolerance in general is different between people. People manage risk in different ways. I don't consider myself a risk taker, although in other people's eyes, I might look at as one. I'm trying to maximize the outcomes from particular situations while protecting the downside. I think Warren Buffett said it. The first rule of business is not to lose money, and the second rule of business is not to forget rule number one. So you don't want to lose too much. I mean, obviously you can lose a little, but you don't want to lose too much.
You sound to me really good at thinking about different scenarios and fallbacks, because like strategically, also in this conversation, you're very calm, and it sounds like in everything that you told, which is really impressive, you're saying it with humility, you always had kind of a thing that you think other people perceive you as risk, but you always had this fallback or a plan or something like you took the poker thing, the royal flush, but at the same thing, you gave the example of how not building on the royal flush and hedging the Bitcoin. So it sounds to me like one of your big skill sets is like not only mitigating risk, but just planning out like if it would happen or not happen. If it doesn't happen, I have a plan. You're like the plan guy.
Well, it's yes. You can look at it in such a way, or yes, it's not just fallback plans, but it's actually spreading your risk over various uncorrelated sources of income.
How do you do that? Uncorrelated sources. How do you do that? Like, how'd you learn that skill?
Well, it's not something that I don't think that you learn it in university or in a.
No, but you found out you have it. How did you find out?
Well, it's something that I think you can pick this up from books. There's good books on this. I would say it's probably also a matter of personality. Some people are high rollers. I've met more than once people who have made $1 million or more, whatever, and then lost everything and then started from scratch. I've met these kind of people who can tolerate that. And there's also other people who are more confident in more stable situations. They want to earn their, all they want is their salary, to increase by 5 or 10% every year, and that's enough for them. So that's like these two extremes, and every person is somewhere on this on this line, from one extreme to the other. I would say I'm probably more to the riskier side than the average person, but I'm not a total risk taker. I always, I want to play it safe, because I think if you lose $1,000 or $100,000 for this, it's probably more painful that if you if you make $1,000 or $100,000. The pain of losing is more than the enjoyment of winning. Yeah. So
I think Dana really talks about that.
I think that's been proven over and over again by people like Kahneman and Tversky, who these researchers and Dan Ariely and these guys have proven that many times, that you want to avoid losses because losses are painful, and if you can avoid losses while you sacrifice a little bit of the upside, that's okay.
What advice do you have for entrepreneurs?
I always like founders, entrepreneurs that try to solve a problem that they have personally, right? So I don't like people. Well, don't like it. It's probably not the right way of saying that, but trying to solve the transportation problems in Sweden, right? I mean, probably this is not something that is, you're not facing, as someone that lives in Tel Aviv, you're probably not, this is not a dilemma that you kind of face personally on a day-to-day level. So I like founders who are trying to solve a problem that they have personally, or it can be in their family, right? They're facing some kind of a challenge. They don't find a solution. They don't find a product that's solving this. And they say, okay, I'm going to find a way to make this problem go away for myself. What usually happens later is as soon as they do that and find a solution, they find out that there is a product market fit. They're not the only ones with this kind of a problem. There's more people on the planet who are facing the same problem. And if they found a good solution, and I think, I can give you an example for this, Monday.com, it's this, unicorn that's worth now, I don't know, $2-3 billion, whatever. They started as some kind of a small startup within Wix, I think. They were called, their name was The Pulse, I think. And, they started this project management tool just for internal, I think it was internal Wix use. And then it was a spin-off and it became an independent company. And that was even before COVID. And then all of a sudden, it looked like, the entire world needs some kind of an online collaboration tool to make teams work together online, and the market is huge. But when they first started this, all they wanted is to solve this little problem of how to make remote teams within the company work together on projects. So they solved this for themselves, and just to discover that the market is basically infinite.
Yeah, we get this a lot, and I think it's superb advice. I'm not going to let you off the hook without telling us what your superpower is.
My superpower?
Yes.
I don't know. I guess I would say that I rely a lot on my intuition. I am a little bit of an analytical person, and I do analyze, but eventually, like, decision making is something that comes from the inside. So I rely a lot about intuition and how it feels, like gut feeling, basically. It's not that this is like, I can't prove that I'm better in this than anyone else, but I still, probably makes me feel good, and the outcomes so far so good. So I rely more and more on this, and as time goes by, and I'm in the middle of my career now, I tend to see that the times that I didn't trust it, and I did some kind of a deal anyway, but I had this feeling inside that something is wrong. It was a red flag. I should have listened to this kind of internal voice, intuition, and walk away from the deal.
I'm sorry, I have to help you out, because I think your superpower is lying in exactly what you explained the superpower and your fault is, because I think approachability is really strong, because I think that you're very trustworthy, and I think you're approachable, meaning I would advise people, and this I'm not saying also because I know your track record, but if you're their investor, it's someone who is a confidant and will help you in a simplified and with humility, which is hard to find. And I'm sure that's the reason that a lot of people work with. And it's using also your intuition and saying that sometimes you have mistakes, which is very rare and respected for someone who has those wins behind you. And this makes me understand why people want to work with you.
And if people have a unicorn on their hands, how can they find you to pitch you?
Right. So it's very easy. They can look me up on Google. Just look for Liron Rose, Liron Rose. You can find I have a website, landing page, or they can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Just Google the name, and it has, you can find either an email or send me an email, or just approach me over LinkedIn. And I'm usually very reachable.
Superb. Thank you so much for giving us your time and for speaking with us.
Happy to do this. Thank you for inviting me. Had a pleasure.
Awesome. And lots of luck with your next unicorn. We believe in you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Technology. Real life.
Superpowers.